Now. All right, Tucker, thank you, and welcome to Hannity. Breaking news tonight, a major morning news shakeup, show shakeup at NBC. Longtime Today anchor Matt Lauer is abruptly fired over an allegation of sexual misconduct. Plus, Variety and the New York Times are both out with explosive new reports where multiple women are now accusing Lauer of sexual misconduct. The details are beyond disturbing. We'll tell you about them. And former NPR radio host Garrison Keillor, Prairie Home companion, and his relationship with Minnesota Public Radio is now terminated over accusations of inappropriate behavior. These are just the latest misconduct claims that are rocking the liberal media and the political establishment. And also tonight, a brand new scandal swirling around one of the most prominent Democrats in Congress. And the president today delivers a powerful message on the need for massive tax cuts and reform to boost the economy, while you have arrogant, lazy, obstructionist Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, doing everything they can do to stop this from happening. Now, this all comes as Senate Republicans are now finally moving towards a vote on this tax bill. And the best crybaby story of all time, we'll tell you about CNN and the White House. That's coming up. Also tonight, I have a very personal decision to make, and I will need your help. That's coming up at the end of the broadcast. We hope you'll stick around. But first, tonight's important breaking news opening monologue. All right, longtime Today Show host Matt Lauer has been fired over what the network says is alleged inappropriate sexual behavior. According to NBC, the sexual misconduct allegation was made against Lauer on Monday, and it involved accusations during the 2014 Winter Olympics that would continue in the office. Now, tonight, Page 6 of the New York Post is reporting that NBC staffers, including a young intern, are now accusing Lauer of texting them lewd pictures and graphic messages. Now, a source told the New York Post that one of the photos is so damning that NBC was forced to act immediately. And if that's not shocking enough, Variety is out with a bombshell report tonight where multiple women are accusing Lauer of sexual harassment. We have to warn you, the details are very disturbing. Now, according to Variety, Lauer allegedly gave a female coworker a sex toy as a present and included a very graphic note about how he wanted to use it on her. And it gets worse. A different female employee told Variety that Lauer called her into his office, then dropped his pants. He exposed himself. And when the accuser refused his advances, he then yelled at her. And Variety is also reporting that Lauer allegedly would play games where he would tell colleagues which Today Show co-hosts he'd like to sleep with. And by the way, it's not all. It gets worse. Two women accusing Lauer of sexual harassment also told Variety that he had a secluded office. It included a button under the desk that he used to lock the door that gave him privacy to pursue these women. And finally, according to Variety, several women say they told NBC management about what was going on with Lauer, but they never did anything to stop it. And the Daily Beast is reporting that NBC says current management was never made aware of any harassment allegations. Also, the New York Times reporting tonight that NBC is receiving two new complaints against Matt Lauer. A former female NBC employee told the New York Times that in 2001, Lauer called her into his office, then allegedly had sex with her. And according to the Times, the woman says she felt helpless about what happened and didn't want to speak out for fear of losing her job. Now, we did reach out to Matt Lauer's agent for a comment earlier today. We have not heard back. And also tonight, it's the Christmas tree lighting in New York City. It happened an hour ago. And according to Page 6, New York Post, NBC tried to edit Lauer out of its coverage. Now, while these allegations against Matt Lauer may be shocking to you watching at home, of course, according to reports, Lauer's alleged behavior was an open secret. There's also disturbing video that has now surfaced. TMZ obtained a video from 2006 where Lauer appears to be making a lewd comment to one of his female co-hosts. Take a look at it.
These are just crosstalks, and I'll meet you outside.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I'm going.
Pretty sweater. Keep bending over like that. It's a nice view.
Then back in 2012, Katie Couric told Bravo this about Matt Lauer. Let's look at this.
You co-hosted the Today Show with Matt Lauer for 15 years. What is Matt's most annoying habit?
He pinches me on the ass a lot.
Wow!
And during that same year, the Today Show did a comedy skit where Morning Joe co-host Willie Geist, well, he slapped Matt Lauer's behind, and then Lauer pretended to be a victim of sexual harassment. Watch this.
Caught on tape. Surveillance cameras are rolling as Willie's hand goes in for the swat. Did you see it? Here it is again from another angle. The owner of that derriere breaking his silence.
I was standing by the doorway in the vestibule, and Willie came out, and I just said, hi, Willie, how are you? And I thought that would be the end of it. And then he reached out and, you know.
Yes, we do. Watch what happens next. Matt slaps back. Is there more to this story? Some would look at this and say, you did something to provoke this.
It's impossible. I didn't do anything differently. I wasn't wearing a different cologne. This was uninitiated. I'm upset for a couple of reasons. One, that he denied it. I mean, why deny it? I mean, if you do it, own up to it.
We should go to Dustin Hoffman and ask his opinion of this. I think he can
What do you
shed
think?
some light on
Dustin,
this.
appropriate, inappropriate?
Should I answer?
Yes.
I'm a little confused. Did Willie swat him with his willy, or?
All right, not funny and kind of creepy given the allegations now being made against Matt Lauer. But he's not the only person who was fired today over sexual harassment allegations. Former NPR radio talk show host Garrison Keillor, you may remember, Prairie Home Companion. He's also facing sexual misconduct accusations tonight. Now, Keillor was fired by Minnesota Public Radio after two staffers made complaints against him. And Keillor responded to one of the accusations by telling the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, quote, I put my hand on a woman's bare back. I meant to pat her back after she told me about her unhappiness, and her shirt was open and my hand went up at about 6 inches. She recoiled. I apologized. I sent her an email of apology later, and she replied that she had forgiven me and not to think about it. We were friends. We could continue to be friendly right up until her lawyer called. And finally tonight, the Detroit News is reporting that several members of the Congressional Black Caucus are now urging Democratic Congressman John Conyers to resign following sexual misconduct allegations from 3 women. Now, Conyers' lawyer is also refuting a report that the congressman will not seek re-election. The attorney told Fox News that Congressman, in this case, Conyers, will continue to serve and is in the mindset to fight all these allegations. Now, we'll have more on that bombshell and more about Matt Lauer's firing in just a moment. In other news tonight, though, first, our other top story is the president is pressing hard for his massive Reagan-esque tax cut and tax reform. Now, the president took his message directly to you, the American people, earlier today in an event in Missouri. Now, in case you didn't get to watch it, here are some of the highlights.
It's not enough for the middle class to keep getting by. We want them to start getting way ahead. We're going to cut taxes on American businesses so they will compete for workers. They'll raise salaries. The business is going to be happy, and the workers are going to be happy, and the country is going to be a happy place. We're also going to eliminate tax breaks and complex loopholes taken advantage of by the wealthy. Who are they? I don't know. I think my accountants are going crazy right now. It's all right. Hey, look, I'm president. I don't care. As Hillary said, what difference does it make? It made a difference. It made a big difference. These massive tax cuts will be rocket fuel. Little rocket man. Rocket fuel for the American economy. The tax cut will mean more companies moving to America, staying in America, and hiring American workers right here. So that's so important, right? This week, hopefully, the Senate can join the House and take that strong stand for middle-class families and for business and for jobs and for competition and for bringing money back. Together, we will give the American people a big, beautiful Christmas present.
All right, now what the president is doing is simple. He is following the model of President John F. Kennedy and President Ronald Reagan. Kennedy cut taxes. The economy soared. More revenue into the federal government. They love that. They love to spend. And Ronald Reagan took up the idea and took it even further. Remember, he slashed the top marginal rate from 70 to 28%. Guess what happened? 21 million new jobs created after the recessions of the early 1980s. GDP growth peaked at 7.3% in 1984. Can you imagine that? Revenues to the government doubled, the longest period of peacetime economic growth in history up to that point. This is not rocket science. When taxpayers keep more of their hard-earned money, your money, the economy grows, jobs are created, the forgotten men and women get helped out. Now, the president is now building on the ideas of Kennedy and Reagan. He wants to cut taxes across the board. He also wants a dramatic corporate tax cut so we're competitive again. And right now, American corporations, they face the highest marginal rate among modern economies in the world. Well, President Trump wants to chop it almost in half to 20% and also let multinational corporations repatriate trillions of dollars they hold overseas that they can now bring back at a low rate to invest in, let's see, factories or manufacturing centers and give American workers a much-needed raise. Now, the president's tax cut plan is all about the forgotten men and women, what this election was about. We've already seen record-setting economic response just to the Trump presidency. Look at the stock market, another record today. Third quarter GDP today was revised upward from 3 to 3.3%. By the way, Barack Obama never had a single year in his presidency of 3% GDP growth. Not one of his 8 years. And in October, just 261,000 jobs were created alone this past month. Unemployment is now at a 17-year low. Consumer confidence a 17-year high. Median existing home prices for all housing types in October 2017 up 8.7% from January of 2017. The economy is beginning to boom. Massive tax cuts is only going to make it better, creating jobs, manufacturing centers, and, of course, factories for people that need these jobs, getting them off of food stamps and getting them back into the workplace and out of poverty. That's what the president was talking about today. That's what Republicans in the House tried to pass. Democrats, they want nothing to do with jumpstarting this economy. They're doing everything possible to stop it. By the way, don't they care at all about helping the millions of forgotten men and women in this country? By the way, to kill the bill, Democrats are deploying the same tired old tactics, class warfare, trying to divide the country. Liberals would rather what? The economy tank even further because that helps them politically? Playing politics? What about the people of this country? We should put them first. Now, here's a perfect example from the media. The New York Times, my favorite paper, they take the best pictures of me. They're now using the power of their newspaper. Why? To crush the tax bill. Look at the tweet this morning from the New York Times editorial board, tweeting out there to people to urge the Senate to reject the tax bill that is literally, they're saying, hurts the middle class and the nation's fiscal health. Excuse me. The tax bill, the tax policies of Obama that they supported 8 years were a disaster. 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty. Now, that's how the so-called paper or record really feels about the men and women in this country. And since the New York Times is issuing what amounts to a call for action to kill this one bill that'll help economic growth, well, we want to issue you our own challenge directly to you, the American people. Lower taxes, tax reform, that's what the president ran on. It's part of the agenda so many of you deplorables like me voted for. If you want lower taxes, you want money in the bank, you want higher wages, you want jobs created, you want people out of poverty and off of food stamps, now is the time to call your senators. And it's up to Republicans to finally get their job done in the U.S. Senate and keep at least one big promise. And earlier today, the Senate GOP, thankfully, well, they voted to begin debate on this tax bill. A huge moment, a huge opportunity. Republicans hopefully will now begin the process of keeping their word. It's time to put up, shut up, and if wishy-washy, never Trumpers, establishment Republicans, if they fail to deliver on this simple principle in this tax bill, they should all resign and get out of the way because they have been complete and total failures up to this point, betraying you, the American people. All right, now back to our top story. Matt Lauer fired, NBC News. Here with reaction, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. From The Hollywood Reporter, we have Marissa Guthrie and trial attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland. Thanks to all of you. I don't even know where to begin. It's like more coming out by the minute about what has really been going on at NBC, and all of it is despicable.
It's horrific. And I have to ask, what did NBC management know here? Matt Lauer allegedly had a button under his desk. Someone had to install this button that would lock the door from his desk.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think he did it himself.
well, these are the questions. These are the big questions. If he was acting alone, how could he have done this with a button under his desk, asking people to come to his hotel rooms to bring pillows? Someone had to know. These women claim that they reported it, not to current management, but to previous management,
Keep
and
reading
nothing
the word
happened.
abuse, not
Yes.
just misconduct.
Abuse. Because if you're locked in a room, Sean, that amounts to much more than an interaction. That amounts to enclosed in a space that could seem like force.
This is okay. These things are not consensual. This is where we're now, and it's also the position of power issue that keeps coming up again and again.
Yeah, it's
now we haven't really heard from Matt Lauer today.
No.
He doesn't seem to be denying anything or saying anything. What do we glean from that?
Well, I think Matt, and he now has some independent publicists working with him, and they were waiting for these other reports and these other accusations before they said anything. I expect they will release some sort of statement, but yes, the entitlement of Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, Harvey Weinstein, and the fact that what all of these have in common is the behavior was an open secret, and nobody did anything about it.
Let me go to Pam Bondi, because I think there are also legal issues that come in here. What do you, as you read all of this, legally speaking, do you see any potential trouble for him? And I'm not talking about civilly.
Well, certainly, depending on what Rebecca just laid out, whether the door was locked, exactly what these women say. But, Sean, I think there also may be a lot of liability on the part of Andy Lack. I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. As a prosecutor, Sean, I always look at a timeline. Look at the timeline here. Variety and the New York Times have been investigating this, they said, for 2 months. So that takes us back to September. Then on November 8th, NBC announces mysteriously that Matt Lauer's no longer going to the Olympics. It's going to be Megyn Kelly, and congratulations to her for that. Then on November 27th, 2 days ago, Andy Lack says that's the first time that they've heard about these allegations against Matt Lauer. So there may be, I think Andy Lack's going to have a lot of answers that he's going to have to be responding to his superiors at NBC. Because let me make myself clear, these women are heroes for coming forward.
Why? I'm trying to understand, because one person comes out and then there's always this avalanche.
Sure.
Which tells me so many, that there's a pattern of behavior in all of this. With
Sean,
all these,
it takes
as a
one
prosecutor, as the Attorney General, obviously, of Florida, is that common? Like one,
Very
then five, then 10?
Very common. I'm sorry, there's a bit of a delay tonight. Very common, Sean. In fact, that's what we see. One woman, it takes one woman to come forward, and that's why the Me Too movement is so important. And if a woman comes forward in Florida against some loser in Tallahassee, I'm going to stand beside her. And I think all women will, for anyone who comes out around this country, whether it's some icon in Hollywood or whether it's someone huge in the media industry. But one woman comes forward, that's all it takes. And then other women say, we can't be scared anymore. We can come forward as well.
Do you also always have to have the presumption of innocence, Pam?
Of course you do. That's why the women have to come forward. I've always said that. And that's why these brave women are coming forward. Now, as Rebecca described, if they truly could have been the victim, and we don't know any of that yet, of a rape, of a sexual assault, if that's true, then their identity by law will be protected.
Yeah.
No one can reveal their identity, and they deserve to be protected as victims of a sexual assault, if that is the case. But we do not know that yet. And of course, anyone is innocent until proven guilty, but you can't take it further unless women continue to come forward. So very important.
I agree with Pam wholeheartedly. She's a great prosecutor in Florida. We need someone like that here in New York. We already have a task force around Harvey Weinstein in New York, in California. Possibly this task force will increase its scope for Matt Lauer or whomever else at NBC may happen upon. There may be more here. You know, his booker was fired. Mr. Zimmerman was fired already for inappropriate sexual conduct. Now, this is someone who was with Matt Lauer throughout the course of his time at NBC. I find that questionable. I find that odd that he was fired. Now Matt Lauer has been let go, apparently only as a result of something NBC found out on Monday. I agree with Pam Bondi that that sounds questionable as well.
Well, Ann Curry described the Today Show as a boys' network when she was ousted, and I think we're seeing evidence of that in these reports, for sure.
Pam, you were saying?
Sean, Savannah Guthrie is a friend. She's one of the nicest people I know, and she got blindsided this morning because she believed in Matt Lauer. I'm sure she still does. It's her friend. And, you know, she had to read that statement on the air this morning, and I felt for her. I felt for Hoda, as well as all the other women at NBC. But the women have to come forward, and I think other women will stand beside them.
All right. Thank you all for being with us. And when we come back, we have so much coming up tonight. Melanie Morgan, Juanita Broderick, Kathleen Willey, they will join us next to talk about their attempt to confront Senator Groper himself. We have the exclusive video, Al Franken at his office. And then later, the biggest crybaby story of all time. It has to do with CNN. It has to do with the White House. Sean Spicer is here tonight. And also, key Democrat James Clyburn reportedly making shocking comments about John Conyers' accusers. We'll get to all of that. Ed Henry has a full report, and I need your help. Later in the show, I'll explain. And welcome back to Hannity. So earlier today, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi took to the House floor in support of a bill for mandatory sexual harassment training for members of Congress and their staffs. Take a look.
So here we are at this watershed moment in the nationwide fight against sexual harassment and discrimination. Brave women in every corner of the country and every industry are making their voices heard. As members of Congress, we have a moral duty to show real, effective leadership to foster a climate of respect and dignity in the workplace with absolutely zero tolerance for harassment, discrimination, or abuse. Anything less is unacceptable, my colleagues.
Really? The same woman who back in 1998 defended then-President Bill Clinton during his impeachment hearing. Watch this.
Why the silence when there have been these allegations, serious ones, about President Clinton?
Well, I'd like to say that I think that the women of America are speaking out about what they think about this whole situation. And the women of America are just like other Americans in that they value fairness, they value privacy, and do not want to see a person with uncontrolled power, uncontrolled time, unlimited money investigating the President of the United States.
Here with reaction, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, civil rights attorney Darrell Parks, and still with us, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Dan Bongino, let me start with you. You know, this is the thing. We're going to have Juanita Broderick and Kathleen Willey on. The Clintons had a 30-year pass from all Democrats about this issue. Now they're trying to, grab the high ground. Now that the Clintons aren't in power, potentially in power, now they can speak out. But these women were smeared and slandered and besmirched and attacked in unprecedented ways.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Sean, remember the Clinton consigliere saying, hey, drag a dollar bill to a trailer park and look what you get. What a bunch of disgusting pigs talking about women like that. And listen, I heard that Pelosi clip before you brought me on here. I mean, if you saw me rolling my eyes, zero tolerance. Zero tolerance for who? Apparently not for Democrats. It's a never-ending sea of tolerance for Democrats. We got Al Franken, we got John Conyers. These are credible allegations. And one other thing on this, Sean, this is what frustrates the heck out of me about Democrats. What's the standard for Republicans? Allegations are made, just allegations. You're supposed to immediately resign if you're a Republican. If you're a Democrat, it's not just that they're credible allegations. They're allegations that are made on the record by people, and not only that, they back these people up and they get them reelected. It's a joke.
And I'm the one that says, I believe, like Pam said in the last segment, the presumption of innocence. You don't rush to judgment. Why I was right in Ferguson, in Baltimore, Freddie Gray, in the Duke lacrosse case. I've argued with my friend Darrell here for a long time about the Zimmerman case. You know, we were right about Trump, too, and the media rushes to judgment. Darrell Parks. But this is 30 years of defending the indefensible. Bill Clinton was a predator, period, end of sentence. And most Democrats, for all that time, defended him.
We're at a different point now, though, Sean. I
Forget
think that
about
these
the
women
different
who are coming
point.
forward
How
now,
do they justify 30 years of defending the indefensible?
Well, I don't think they're trying to justify it. They're trying to move forward. The women who are coming out now are the ones that we need to focus on, and the people they're accusing. Well, here's the deal, though. I think the folks like John Conyers have the right to have their matters adjudicated and to confront their witnesses.
I agree with you.
Yes.
But he denied it. I wasn't there. But it should be investigated fully. All right, Pam.
That's right.
Well, and Darrell and I have been friends for many years, and we're still good friends. Here's the difference, Darrell, and I'm going to talk about Nancy Pelosi for a minute, about some moral bankruptcy here. When you have a woman, the leader of the Democratic Party, a feminist, coming out saying on Meet the Press that Conyers is an icon, and when asked about the women, if she believed them, she said, I don't know these women. How is this going to encourage women to come out when a woman leader is saying things like that? There have to be consequences for your actions. We all know that. But she needs to support these women.
Dan.
And Darrell, I appreciate the point he's making, but he's wrong. He's saying, in one respect, we agree. Everybody agrees these things should be adjudicated. But secondly, move on. I mean, Darrell, I'm sorry, these women, Bill Clinton admitted to this in the Lewinsky case. Did they ever get to move on? I mean, we don't just move on without taking into account the impact to these women's lives, the trauma that happened to them. I'm sorry, but I don't think move on is the appropriate term here when talking about people who have been a victim of these political people and their assaults on them.
Dan, this moment is not about Bill Clinton. This moment is about these women who are coming forward and us hearing what they have to say and giving them the respect that they're due.
Well,
it is about Bill Clinton.
But let me just say something. I have Juanita Kathleen on in the next segment. You know, unlike a lot of these people, I actually went at the time and interviewed them. They were not only not just ignored, they were smeared. There was a systematic war machine to destroy them, Darrell. Yes. And that went on up until and including through the last election.
Well, Sean, I think the moment that we're looking at here, though, this moment is a lot different. The moment that we're having in this country is a very important moment.
Darrell, that's
for
not
women.
flying with me. This was last year. They were defending. They were smearing. They were attacking those women. Now everyone's saying, oh, believe the Hillary said last year, women have a right to be believed. And I'm like, she was in the heart of destroying some of these people.
But they have the right to be believed, but also these accusations that are being made have the right to be adjudicated to properly in the right venues.
We kind of learned a lot. He admitted Jennifer Flowers finally told the truth. Look what they did to the first person, Jennifer Flowers. She had tapes, and the media still defended Bill. Last word, Pam Bondi.
Well, Sean, I think all of us, all of you gentlemen, every woman who comes forward, we need to stand next to them. I'm so proud of the members of the Black Caucus who have come out and said Conyers needs to go. That's what we need to do. We need to stick by these women, give the men a right to defend themselves, absolutely, but someone needs to stand with these women.
If you give them a right to defend themselves, why do you say he has to go?
Rose McGowan. 2 words, Rose McGowan in Hollywood, who started all of this.
Okay.
Dan,
we'll give you the last word. I want you to respond to that.
Sean, it's about a common set of standards. That's why when Darrell says it's not about Bill Clinton, I disagree. It is about Bill Clinton in that it's about a set of standards. We have to protect women from these predators. We didn't do it for Clinton, and it is about Clinton, and that's why it's about him.
I think it's
not
very
about him
relevant.
personally, it's about standards.
Apropos and applicable. Thank you. When we come back, Melanie Morgan, Juanita Broderick, Kathleen Willey, they went to Senator Al Franken's office today to hold him accountable for what we know he did. Now we're going to play the video and get exclusive details on what happened. Also, top Democrat James Clyburn now reportedly making stunning comments defending John Conyers over sexual allegations. And I have an announcement and I need your help. That's later in the show. In other news tonight, Democratic Congressman James Clyburn is coming under fire for reportedly making shocking comments about John Conyers' accusers. We go to Ed Henry. He's outside the White House tonight with the very latest. This is beyond shocking. Go ahead.
Really remarkable comments tonight, Sean. It's interesting because Democrats were pretty excited when they had Republicans on defense over the Roy Moore allegations. Now it may be boomeranging because of the allegations against John Conyers and other Democrats. But specifically, our own Martha McCallum tonight had a compelling interview with a new accuser against Democrat John Conyers. He has already stepped down as the top Democrat on the Judiciary panel because of allegations of sexual harassment. Well, now the state newspaper in Columbia, South Carolina, reporting on this new video of a very prominent Democrat, a leader in Congress, James Clyburn, walking to an elevator with the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And when they were asked, why hasn't Conyers resigned, unlike other powerful men who have been fired like Matt Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, Clyburn said, quote, who elected them, as if there was a different standard for members of Congress. Meanwhile, Robert Draper of the New York Times Magazine tweeting, quote, also at this morning's House Democratic Caucus, James Clyburn compared Conyers' accusers to the child murderer Susan Smith, who initially claimed a black man had abducted her kids. Clyburn said these are all white women who have made these charges against Conyers. Now, I want to be clear that a Democratic aide is telling Fox tonight that Clyburn did not make that comparison to the racially charged murder case. And Clyburn himself tweeted a short time ago, quote, this is inaccurate in many regards. That discussion had nothing to do with Conyers. But interesting, they are not shooting down the fact that Clyburn suggested lawmakers maybe should be treated differently. That's coming just days after the top House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi got into hot water for calling Conyers an icon and raising doubts about his accusers. She has since backpedaled on that, under fire, as these new Conyers accusers come forward.
Do you believe John Conyers is accusers?
I don't know who they are. Do you? They have not really come forward. And that gets
so you don't know if you believe the accusations?
What? That's for the Ethics Committee to review.
With the assault, and it was violent, in my mind, no, it wasn't rape, but for some guy to grab you, who was a staffer, one of his top staffers, for him to grab you and force you against the wall and stuck his tongue down my throat at my age, which I was 61 at the time, that was pretty devastating. I can't tell you how ashamed I felt.
Now, there are reports tonight that Conyers will retire from the House at the end of 2018. He has not yet confirmed that, but interesting, he has refused repeatedly, Sean, to resign from Congress.
All right, Ed Henry in Washington, outside the White House tonight. Thank you. And as we have been reporting, sexual harassment allegations continue to plague Senator Al Franken. Today, Melanie Morgan decided to confront Senator Grope himself, who she accused of harassing her 17 years ago. Morgan went to Franken's Capitol Hill office. She brought with her two women who accused Bill Clinton of sexual misconduct, groping, grabbing, and in one case, rape. Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broderick. Not surprisingly, Senator Franken would not see them. Take a look.
Well, you can tell Al Franken hello from Melanie Morgan. He might not remember me, but I sure remembered him very clearly, 17 years later.
We did reach out to Franken's office for a statement about what happened today. We haven't heard back. Joining us now from the media equalizer, Melanie Morgan, and two women who have accused President Clinton of sexual misconduct, Juanita Broderick, Kathleen Willey. Juanita, let me start with you. I remember when I interviewed you. I remember first Lisa Myers interviewed you first. I interviewed you second. And I took the time to interview all those women at the time. Jennifer Flowers has been vindicated now. We saw his conduct with Monica Lewinsky. So a lot of lying went on. And I remember Lisa Myers said something. She called you and said, the problem is you are too credible. I want you to explain the story and what the Clinton machine did to you.
You know, Sean, that was probably one of the hardest times of my life. I had absolutely spilled out my heart and soul in that interview. I had finally decided to do it with Lisa Myers and NBC. And it was supposed to have been broadcast 2 weeks after they filmed it. And it was about 2 weeks later, and Lisa calls. And she says, well, they're still doing more investigating. Mr. Lack wants to have more investigating done. And it was disappointing to me because I had just been gone through the ringer. Okay, so she said, well, there's a problem. There's good news and there's bad news. And I said, yes. And she said, the good news is you're credible. And I said, what's the bad news? And she said, you're very credible. Now, how do you take something like that? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it went on for another 5 weeks before they showed it, and showed it opposite the Grammys on a Friday night, I believe.
Let's talk about the things that were said, the attacks that were made against you by Clinton supporters and
oh yeah, that I was lying, that I had lied in my affidavit, that I was having an affair with another man, which was true. But my first marriage was over. They just hunted for anything that they could to try to bring me down. Of course I lied in my affidavit. I was scared to death of the Clinton machine.
30 years later.
Yeah.
We've had 30 years, though, of so many women that have gone through this. Kathleen, you're one of them. You went to the White House. You had known Clinton. You were a volunteer. And your story is he grabbed, fondled, touched, and kissed you against your will.
Yes, yes, he did.
And what happened
yes,
to you? What did the Clinton machine do to you?
They put me through 2 years of holy terror. They followed me. They terrorized me. There were people sneaking around my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. They killed 2 of my pets. They threatened my children 2 days before my deposition in the Paula Jones case. They told me I wasn't getting the message. They knew where my children lived and that everybody better be careful. I lived in fear and terror for 2 years.
Let me ask you.
I still look over my shoulder.
Melanie, I want to ask you, because we saw the picture of Franken and Leanne Tweeden asleep. I had an experience where Franken is nuts. Right here at the Fox studios. It's a different, not in the same way, not in the same vein, nothing, but unhinged is the only way I can describe him. You had that experience. You confronted him. I want you to address the 30-year, what happened today, and the 30 years of Clinton and their defenders and Democrats threading every needle up until and including last year's election, and now the position they're taking.
First of all, I want to say that I've had the opportunity to spend the last 24 hours with 3 of the bravest women I have ever met in my entire life, Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broaddrick, and Leslie Milwee. And I consider it an honor to be able to invite them here to Washington, and they joined me on Capitol Hill, where we confronted at least the staffers of Senator Al Franken, who was cowering behind the door of his office because he refused to meet us. All these years later, it is so important, 30 years later, it is so important to revisit history if we're going to learn for our future generations, of our daughters and of our sons, of our grandchildren. If we don't learn from Bill Clinton and what he did to these poor women and the exercise of power and abuse of these women, how are we going to teach our sons how to behave appropriately?
You know, we
That's
keep
why
hearing
I'm
from
calling
Democrats.
out,
All of a sudden, Democrats, after the election from last year, oh, the day of reckoning for the Clintons is coming. A little late. And it seems a little politically expedient because she's not running.
No. And you know what? I just want to say that Congressman Conyers, Captain Underpants, as I refer to him, and Al Frankengroper, they need to go. And that's what we have to say to all of America. And I would like to ask all of your listeners, if I could, Sean, to put some pressure on the majority and minority leaders in both houses of Congress to ask these 2 men to resign. They're clinging to power. I understand that Conyers has left the District of Columbia. He's flown back on coach, by the way, to Michigan, to his home state. But Al Franken seems to think that if he just waits the storm out, that it'll all pass. But we haven't forgotten. I will not forget. Kathleen won't forget. All of these women, we have to stop sexual harassment now, and we have to hold all people in Congress accountable for their power.
And stop using our money to pay off their deals with people. All right, last question, Juanita and Kathleen. It's 30 years of you basically have been abused and not believed. Now liberals have changed their tune. What message do you have to them, Juanita, and then Kathleen?
You know, the message that I have is it's a little late. You know, I would like to have had that belief many years ago. And I don't believe we would be getting it now where the Clintons not on their way down. It's hard to believe that they truly mean what they're saying.
Well said. Kathleen?
I believe it's the same thing that Juanita does. It's a little too late. And I think their apologies that we've heard so far are empty apologies. The only reason that they made them is because they were caught. And like Melanie said, I hope that everyone in this country will call their congressmen and their senators and demand to know the names of the people on the list that are $17 million paid for their sexual harassment cases, and remind them.
Let it come out of their pocket. I agree with you. Let them pay.
We pay them. We pay them, and they owe us answers.
Absolutely. All right. I know it's hard for you guys to go back to this. We really appreciate you being with us. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Sean. Thanks.
When we come back, fake news, liberal CNN, the biggest bunch of crybabies I've ever met. I'll explain. Sean Spicer weighs in, and I need your help with an important issue straight ahead. All right, the crybabies over at Fake News CNN are boycotting the White House Christmas party. Sarah Sanders, she's seeing the bright side. She said, quote, "Christmas comes early. Finally good news from CNN." And she was then retweeted by her boss, President Trump, who added, "Great, we should boycott Fake News CNN. Dealing with them is a total waste of time." You can't blame the president. And with coverage like this, for example.
I have a whole lot to say about this president's increasing erratic behavior over the past week or so.
We have an Archie Bunker in chief who is disrespecting American Indians and making classless jokes from the podium.
If you think you've had an earful of Donald Trump, check out what's in the ear of a beagle in Britain named Chief. Brace yourself.
Is this president trying to impersonate Hugo Chavez, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Vladimir Putin?
Apparently, the president gets 2 scoops. You know, everyone else around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
At the dessert course.
All right, we can go on, especially Humpty Dumpty. That could be a full hour. Now, Trump isn't the first president to have unkind words for members of the media. You may remember Obama didn't particularly like me.
In 2012, Latinos voted at record numbers. The next day, even Sean Hannity changed his mind and decided immigration reform was a good idea. Rudy Giuliani said, "Putin is what you call a leader." Mike Huckabee and Sean Hannity keep talking about his bare chest, which is kind of weird. With respect to Sean Hannity, I didn't know that he had invited me for a beer. His opinion of me does not seem to be very high, but I'm always good for a beer. I'll put Mr. Burgess up against Sean Hannity. He'll tear him up.
Oh, threat of violence? I was never invited to a White House Christmas party during the Obama administration. Not that I would have gone. Here with reaction, former White House press secretary Sean Spicer. Really, CNN? Really? Your reaction?
Well, look, I think it was very gracious for the president and the first lady to open up the White House, the People's House, to so many people, the armed services, members of guests, and folks for this Christmas season to see the People's House. It's the First Lady and her team just did a marvelous job decorating it. The video's out there for all to see. And what I think is interesting, Sean, and for people who don't understand, traditionally, at least in the last several years from what I understand, invitations were given to bureaus. And they were allowed to invite, X number of people to the White House Christmas party. And a lot of times those were distributed to television and media executives and on-air talent. What the White House did this year was really go through a arduous process of trying to make sure that the people who worked in the White House media corps, the technicians, the sound people, the lighting individuals, the people who go to the White House day in and day out to work on behalf of these media organizations without the glamour and glitz of being an executive or on-air talent, got invited and got to bring a spouse or a partner or a son or a daughter. And what CNN's decision to do, make sure that these individuals who really probably look forward to going can't go anymore. And you've got an organization like Politico that's out there surveying people on whether or not they'll take a picture with the president. And yet some of that same organization has reporters asking the White House if they can get invited or bring a guest. And so it is these media types, CNN and Politico, that are doing a disservice to the gracious act that the president and the first lady have offered so many of these individuals, not just the on-air talent and the executives, but those technicians that really work hard and labor on behalf of those organizations to get the news and the broadcast out.
I don't know how you put up with their crap for all the time that you were press secretary, to be honest. You have the patience of Job. I remember one year I said to Fox, I said, well, was I invited? And they laughed. And they said, no, you weren't invited. I didn't take it personally, by the way. I used to joke about it.
Well, again, I think that it's always, you know, the way that people are viewing this one now is very myopically. It's always through the lens of Trump, not through the context of, you know, what happened during the Obama years. But again, I'll go back to the fact that this White House, under President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, have reached out and graciously tried to make the White House, the people's house, and the decorations.
I never knew that. That's great.
But something that these people can come and share with their family and friends, because so many of these individuals really do work hard behind the scenes and aren't there for their family, and they get to bring them for the first time, and it's a shame that they won't be able to participate because CNN's executives have done this.
I appreciate it. When we come back, I need your help. I have a huge decision, an announcement. Next. All right, Christmas just around the corner, and like many Americans, I am busy deciding which photos to use on my annual Christmas card, which I really don't send out. I'm making pretend here, and I need your help. It's kind of like fake news. Should I use this photo of me, that's me in the high chair there, as a baby, the man in the left-hand corner in the back of my grandfather, and my sisters were in the photo, or I was thinking maybe this gem from the New York Times. The middle one is the actual cover of the New York Times Sunday magazine. That's maybe one of my best pictures ever. So, which one of those photos should I send out? You decide. At Sean Hannity on Twitter, Hannity.com, and I'll actually make a real Christmas card this year. Let us know. Remember, we're always fair and balanced when not to destroy Trump media. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left, but let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham is right there. Now, you can vote, but I don't want the audience being influenced by your vote. Don't go with Laura just because whatever she says, because it's not going to be good. I just feel it coming.
This is a scintillating segment, first of all, let me just say, number one. Number two, this is the second night in a row where you've shared baby photos with us. Now, this is just the shameless.
All right, tomorrow night you bring
Look at what a cutie pie I was. Look at me in the high chair. Look at me riding my little lamb with the wheels on it. That is just so shameless.
I want to see photos of Laura Ingraham as a baby tomorrow night this time.
No problem. I got it. I vote for you at looking really scary and mean because you know that's the fun, Hannity.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Oh yeah, I can't even duplicate that look.
Hey,
I can't do
Hannity.
it.
By the way, let me just say this: you've been throwing spaghetti and Cheerios ever since you were on that wheelchair. That's what you've been doing. Okay. All right, Sean.
Have a good show. Oh,
All
gosh.
right, thanks so much. I am going to bring those photos in tomorrow. Good evening, everyone from Washington. This is the Ingraham Angle.